Hello, welcome to a fairy tale edition. I think I'm going to read a lot of fairy tales and talk about the stories that we're telling children. And today I want to read one of the Brothers Grimm, which is probably going to be my primary source of fairy tales. Probably not a surprise. But this one is probably not very well known. It's called The Louse and the Flea. A louse and a flea kept house together and were brewing beer in an eggshell. Then the little louse fell in and burnt herself. On this the little flea began to scream loudly. Then said the little room door, "Little flea, why art thou screaming?" "Because the louse has burnt herself." Then the little door began to creak. On this the little broom in the corner said, "Why art thou creaking, little door?" "Have I not reason to creak? The little louse has burnt herself. The little flea is weeping." So the little broom began to sweep frantically. Then a little cart passed by and said, "Why art thou sweeping, little broom?" "Have I not reason to sweep? The little louse has burnt herself, the little flea is weeping, the little door is creaking." So the little cart said, "Then I will run," and began to run wildly. Then said the ash heap by which it ran, "Why art thou running so, little cart?" "Have I not reason to run? The little house has burnt herself, the little flea is weeping, the little door is creaking, the little broom is sweeping." The ash heap said, "Then I will burn furiously," and began to burn in clear flames. A little tree stood near the ash heap and said, "Ash heap, why art thou burning?" "Have I not reason to burn? The little louse has burnt herself, the little flea is weeping, the little door is creaking, the little broom is sweeping, the little cart is running." The little tree said, "Then I will shake myself," and began to shake herself so that all her leaves fell off. A girl who came by with her water pitcher saw that, and said, "Little tree, why art thou shaking thyself?" "Have I not reason to shake myself? The little louse has burnt herself, the little flea is weeping, the little door is creaking, the little broom is sweeping, the little cart is running, the little ash heap is burning." On this the girl said, "Then I will break my little water pitcher." And she broke her little water pitcher. Then said the little spring from which ran the water, "Girl, why art thou breaking thy water jug?" "Have I not reason to break my water jug? The little louse has burnt herself, the little flea is weeping, the little door is creaking, the little broom is sweeping, the little cart is running, the little ash heap is burning, the little tree is shaking itself." "Oh, ho," said the spring, "then I will begin to flow," and began to flow violently. And in the water everything was drowned: the girl, the little tree, the little ash heap, the little cart, the broom, the little door, the little flea, the little louse, all together. The end. Welcome to fairy tales that we tell children, right? They frequently end dismally. And I think there's a purpose to that. And it's not to scare children necessarily, but when we encounter something dismal, it's easier for us to draw moral conclusions or um, discern right from wrong, and start to analyze, well, what could have done to prevent this tragedy, right? And thankfully it's a story. Carts and doors and brooms don't talk. I think it's interesting in this story, everything is described as little except the girl, but she is also a girl, not a woman, so I think it's implied she's little. But one thing is that one little thing, it's a louse, lice, the hair bugs, right? It falls in and scalds itself. Um, and that leads, it escalates to all of these things, including a little girl, which is the true tragedy if we really understand, like being drowned. Um, I guess if we feel bad for the flea and the louse being drowned, that's one thing, but the other things are inanimate, um, talking animate, but the other things are things that could be replaced, but this little girl is not. So that's the real tragedy here. Um, I think it's funny that just the format of this story reminds me of a couple things like Dr. Seuss's Green Eggs and Ham, where it just builds and builds on what was previously said, or it's like the old lady that swallowed the fly. Uh, it's just kind of that escalating language, and um, I think it's kind of fun actually. But I think that the story that you tell a child, um, if the child starts to think about it and draw some moral conclusions, one of those things is that little things make a big difference. And the way that we respond to little things matters. Because if we look at the responses, um, all of them were quite chaotic, and none of them were helpful at all. So after the louse gets scalded, the little flea just weeps. It's like, okay, you're just crying about it. You're not doing anything to help. Then the door just starts to creak. More noise, adding to the chaos. The broom starts to sweep. That's not helping this scalded louse. The cart starts to race around. The ash heap, or I have another translation that calls it a dung heap, which actually I think makes more sense, um, starts to burn really hot, and then the tree just starts to shake, and the girl breaks her water jug. None of these things helps. It's just adding to chaos in response to tragedy or more chaos. And so it's like people take chaos as an excuse to create more chaos. That's not helpful, and ultimately leads to this stream or spring, that flows so violently that everyone is drowned because, well, it reminds me of kind of Noah's flood. The idea that things get so bad that we just need to get rid of it all and start fresh. And that's kind of a similar idea here, really. We need to, if we encounter chaos, instead of maybe, I don't know if it's a natural inclination to respond with more chaos, but rather than giving in and adding to the chaos, we could do something to soothe the pain. Let's help that little louse that got scalded. I don't know if anyone had the ability to help that louse, but responding with more chaos, with more noise, isn't helpful and ultimately led to everyone drowning. So um, I think we can learn to limit chaos in our own lives, and when we encounter it in others, to gracefully help them um, find soothing and calming, because that will keep us all from drowning in the chaos.